You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. Practice number 5 is in the books. Dave Lapham was on hand down at Paycor Stadium. And Lap, the first thing we have to touch on, yesterday we talked about Sam Hubbard having an injury in practice yesterday. What is the latest on Sam Hubbard and what you saw from him today?
Good news, Dave. Very good news. Sam Hubbard, I think the Bengals and Sam Hubbard both dodged the bullet. He was out there dressed in shorts, T-shirt, encouraging his teammates, just like other players that are on the shelf for various reasons, whether it be a veteran day or nursing an injury or whatever. So it looks like Sam Hubbard, hopefully he won't be missing too much time. So that's great news right there. And there were quite a few players that didn't participate, not necessarily because of injury. During the course of practice, though, Gunter twisted his left knee a little bit, but he was checked out by the training staff on the sideline. He kind of like hopped off the field on one leg and then kind of walked under his own power toward the end of it and got checked out, and looks like he's okay. Just tweaked it a little bit, so nothing serious there. But I mean, it's a day where quite a few guys, they were let's say that they didn't tax too many guys today unintentionally. Zach, that's Zach's intention.
Yeah, I had a chance to catch Zack Taylor's press conference today with the media. He talked about, hey, we have a plan, what we're doing with guys. Guys know what they're doing. They came in mentally sharp. This is no issue because, as you and I both know, you get into July, early August, you have days like today where a lot of moisture in the air, humidity in the air, threats of rain, and that created a situation where Zack Taylor was able to say, hey, we're going to cut this practice a little bit short because some bigger things are coming up once we put full pads on.
Yeah, and he did. He it was probably a good 10 or 15 minutes shorter in length, and of course Jamar didn't participate in practice today. But then some guys started to ramp it up a little bit, like Cam Taylor-Britt started doing some individual drills with his helmet on, which he hadn't done. So there are some guys that are working their way back a little bit. But Zach not only shortened practice, I mean, he had guys like Logan Wilson didn't take many reps at all, really. Individual drills, team drills, almost the whole offensive line. 4 of the 5 starters in the offensive line took no team snaps at all either. I mean, they did individual drills and that sort of thing, but any part of team practice, they were rested. The only one that was taking snaps, and he took quite a few of them, is Mims, the rookie. So he's the young blood. They figure, he's got the freshest legs. So he really was resting guys, getting guys' legs back for them. Every position group had this kind of thing. Mike Hilton, he was not doing much of anything out there in terms of taxing himself as well. And so it was a veteran day for him. Trey Hendrickson did not go, like Sam Hubbard did not go. BJ Hill got a veteran day. Joe Burrow threw just a little bit, and part of the plan in terms of not just shortening practice, but letting players get their legs back under them. In other words, taking reps off of some of the veteran players in team drills. When he was running team, it was all run, or not all, but I'd say a heavy dose of the run game today, whether it be out in the field, down in distance situations, red zone, low red zone. They were running the football. Well, what does that do? It not only rests the quarterback's arm, receivers aren't running long routes, defensive backs aren't sprinting long distances. He was doing everything he possibly could from a practice schedule in terms of the length of practice, what took place during the course of practice, resting players and team portion of it during practice. And when guys were out there working, they were being smart. The coaches were asking them, to give effort, but they weren't taxing them with extra running. So, I mean, Zack Taylor and his coaching staff, they have tremendous empathy for their players, and they want to have their players be right for the first day of pads. And it's so different now than it was back in the day. But I think it's smart. The players really respond. It was a crisp practice. My mindset would be, man, this coaching staff is bending over backwards to be more than fair to me. I'm going to bust my butt. Everything they ask me to do, I'm going to do as well and as quickly as I possibly can, because, I'm going to go up tempo as much as I can, because, man, they're being more than reasonable. And, I think that's that trust that starts to get built up. And, some of these young guys that are getting these snaps that are more available, it's going to be much different. Now the true evaluation starts. I've asked many coaches, who has shown so far? Is anybody with the extra snaps they're getting, is anybody kind of taking the bull by the horns and stood out? And they're like, a little hesitant. I said, obviously premature, don't have pads on yet. Exactly. Because as we know, Dave, sometimes guys look phenomenal in underwear ball, and, they lose it. I mean, they disappear when pads come on. And you see the opposite. Guys look like, this might be a little bit too big for them. Pads come on, all of a sudden, man, it's a holy terror. And then sometimes guys stay right with it. Guys look great in underwear ball and they're great in pads, and vice versa. They don't look good in underwear ball and they don't look good in pads. So there's everything, all ranges of it. And you have to find out, guys that you have not been around all that much, you have to find out what category that they fall into when you're making the evaluation. So guys might earn more snaps in underwear ball, but if they show that they can't handle it when the pads go on, those snaps are going to go away. And it's interesting. This is the time of year too where coaches find out, all right, does he know what he's supposed to do? That's one thing. But does he know why he's supposed to do it? That's the next step of it. Does he understand my entire concept, what I'm trying to get across defensively? Is he just tunnel visioning on, his assignment, and he's going to be one of those guys that can spit out assignments by memory, but he doesn't really know why he's doing what he's doing? And you like to have as many football players that know why you're asking them to do what they're doing, not only what they're supposed to be doing. So, that's another thing that's easier to find out in pads in a situation like, that they're getting into now. This is when training camp really, really starts, is when those pads come on. There's no doubt about it.
Lap, you were born way too soon. What would a Paul Brown or a Forrest Gregg say about today's NFL preseason camp?
Man, it's interesting. This camp would be one extreme. Forrest Gregg would be the opposite extreme. Paul Brown would be somewhere in the middle. Paul wasn't one to beat you up. Paul's practices were like 90 minutes, a lot of them. But man, there was no wasted time. Dave, these guys take water breaks that last a good period of time. There's special teams periods where, it's like a 10-minute break for guys that aren't involved with special teams. And I'm not saying that they're standing around doing nothing. Position coaches are going over, assignments with them mentally and all that sort of thing. But man, PB, there was no downtime like that. It was like you were moving. It was an hour and a half, but it was constant movement, and you got a lot of conditioning in, just going from one thing to the next and not taking any break in between. And then, of course, Forrest Gregg, man, we were kidding about it the other day. Anthony and I and Kenny Anderson at practice. It's like, Forrest, day 2 of training camp. Okay, nutcracker drill, live, everybody, live tackling too. Running backs, linebackers, safety shift, everybody's involved. Let's get in here. Let's get after this. And then, of course, after the Super Bowl, we had that problem on the goal line when we made 2 mental errors and 4 snaps on the goal line. Most important part of the game, we fell apart mentally. Forrest was not happy at all. So the very next training camp, and we stretch, we do some calisthenics. He has us do grass drills, run in place, hit the ground, on your belly, up you come. They called them, Green Bay. He did them up in Green Bay. They called them the grass drills. Lombardi did a ton of them with them. Well, he beat us up with those. Lap around the field we go. He blows the whistle, brings it up. This will never happen. We'll never have mental errors on the goal line again. Goal line scrimmage live, half an hour, full go. I mean, everybody, you talk about being stiff. Oh, we were stiff for almost the rest of the season. It was crazy. So yeah, is that the smartest thing to do? No. Is Zack Taylor? Is he going to be sure that his players are fresh down the stretch? They're going to have their legs with them. Yes, I believe so. And I would say around the league, it's probably close to what the Bengals are doing, but I'm not sure. I talked to Zach Moss. This is the 3rd camp that he's been in. And he said this one is the most player friendly that he has been part of. And so, he said he really, really has fresh legs and going into the padded practices, and he feels is better than he's ever felt in his professional career in that regard. So, I mean, the players appreciate it. And like I said, Zach's definitely, and the coaching staff, they definitely have empathy for the players, and the players, they need to basically reward the coaches by busting their tails, man. I mean, make every rep, every snap count, and get that trust going between player to player, like we talked about, player to coach, coach to player, all that good stuff.
You're in the trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. If you're looking for a new career or a career move in the logistics business, be sure to visit firststarlogistics.com and learn more about opportunities with one of the best companies we've been around, Lap. I mean, we can't say enough about the great things that go on when we're in the studio especially our new studio at First Star Logistics. And they always treat us great, and the tools they provide us with are unbelievable. And the atmosphere we see with the employees is always upbeat, friendly, and fun.
Yeah, we were just talking about what the environment that they're trying to create down there, with the Cincinnati Bengals, and the empathy that the coaching staff has for the players and the trust that's trying to be built. I mean, First Star Logistics is way ahead of the ball game in that regard. The work environment there is incredible. And they make sure that the employees have everything they possibly need to exceed at the highest level possible, to succeed, at the highest level possible. And that includes us, what we're trying to do within the trenches and other things that are done in that studio. And the studio is phenomenal. And, it's like, boy, if they're this interested in making as good a product as they possibly can, let's step up and try to make sure that we're holding up our end of the bargain. And that's our goal, right, Dave?
You got it. Lap, I've got to ask you, I want to touch a little bit because, like you said, pads haven't come on yet. We're going to learn a lot about these players, especially those new to the Cincinnati Bengals, about the roster makeup. But during Zack Taylor's press conference, you mentioned Zach Moss, the running back that came over. Zack Taylor seems very impressed with what he's seen so far out of the new Bengals running back.
Oh, definitely. And I asked him during that press conference you're talking about, Dave. I said, some of these players that have had an opportunity to, next man up, additional snaps that have become available. These players are thirsting for the opportunity here. Has anybody grabbed a hold of it? And he said, I hold judgment until pads come on, and that's more than fair. For the reasons that we just talked about. Sometimes somebody looks like an unbelievable player in hero ball when it's just shorts and t-shirts, but then when the helmets and pads and the pads in the pants and everything else comes on, sometimes those guys disappear, sometimes they don't. But I think that this roster, Dave, going into the padded practices, honestly, I'm looking at it and thinking, man, maybe 60, worst case scenario 55. So probably like in the range of 58 players are worthy of making this football team, and are worthy of making football teams in the National Football League, at least that number. So, man, they're going to be having some tough decisions to be made in that regard. And when I look at the potential construction of the roster, Dave, there's just one player in the 90 players that are in training camp right now that's going into a double-digit season in his career, and that's Trent Brown. He's going into his 10th year. He's the only guy. I mean, it's unbelievable. They only have 14 players with 6 years or more experience. I mean, they've got 76 players with 5 years or less experience. It's unbelievable. They have like 11 fifth-year players, 9 fourth-year players, 7 third-year players, 16 second-year players. And these second and third year players, we talk about it all the time, rookie year, you're going to have some exceptions to the rule. I mean, there's always rookies that carve out a role for themselves and start expanding on that role. They've got 23 guys, 16 going into the second year, 7 going into the third year, where it's like, okay, been around for a year or two. I know what's going on. Before I didn't know what I didn't know. Now I have a pretty good handle. Now I know what their expectations are of me. And that's when guys really jump, in their career. And it's like you've got a bunch of guys I mean, Jamar's going into his fourth year. T. Higgins is going into his fifth year. Joe Burrow is going into his fifth year. It's you go up and down this roster. It's unbelievable how young these guys are. The players that they're really counting on are in the very, very early stages of the prime of their career. 7 first-year players, and that is a first-year player is not a guy that is a rookie, but he's been on a practice squad. He doesn't have enough games to accrue a season, but he has experience in the National Football League, has been part of the training camps, been part of preseason games. They have 7 of those type of players, and then 25 rookies, and either drafted or free agents. So that's where, okay, how many of those guys are gonna make the football team? That's where a big number are. Where okay, where are with those 32 guys? But man, the others, I mean, it's from the second year player on. I'm telling you, there's like 55 to 60 guys that you're saying, man, I mean, this is a pretty good group. And when you look at it by position, offensively, you've got, or let's break it down. Two players in the secondary that are 5 offensive linemen, 2 players in the secondary, 5 offensive linemen, 2 tight ends, 4 defensive linemen, and linebacker. Those 14 players that have 6 or more years experience. So in the offensive and defensive line, 9 of the 14 players are up front, which is no big shocker. And then you throw a linebacker in there and a couple of tight ends. That's at the line of scrimmage. It's in the pits. It's in that tight end to tight end scenario there. A couple of veteran guys in the secondary, Mike Hilton and Von Bell. Those are the only guys with 6 or more years experience. I mean, all of the skill players, the guys on the perimeter, the guys that have to do all the running and everything else, they're all young people that are just entering their prime. And that bodes well. I mean, this football team's constructed pretty darn effectively, and it's going to be interesting to see the final decisions that are made, and the real evaluations start now, Dave. As you know as well as anybody, you've been around football, your whole life basically as well, and this is when you find out who is a football player, not just who's an athlete. You look in the secondary and you have speed and athleticism. That's great. Does it translate to football player? Now you start that part of the process, and it's going to be interesting to see how the team's formed.
He is Dave Lapham. You've been In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, presented by First Star Logistics. You can find In the Trenches with Dave Lapham on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe, follow, comment. We also love to see comments on the videos or even on the podcast area. Dave, until our next conversation, hoo-day.
Hoo-day, Dave. Have a great one.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realized self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
Opportunity knocking.